All right, guys, how you doing? Good? How many of you, who ate the most during Thanksgiving? Yeah? Anyone take a nap afterwards? Yeah, all of you? Okay, that's good. I think I took a nap after I ate the turkey. I woke up, ate more cheese and potatoes, took a nap on the ride home, then took a nap before I went to bed, so I was set that day. How many of you guys know me? Okay. Well, thank you, yeah. So my name is Trevor, Trevor Pecor. I'm the new intern here at Jacob's Well. I help to organize youth group and some of the events we do. No, I'm pretty sure you guys have met some of my siblings. I have an older sister, Mackenzie. She was playing piano. And I think we have a photo of us as kids up there. Oh, Kenzie's in the middle, yeah. I'm on the left, and my little brother Cole's on the right. Cole, where are you? Cole, you were adorable as a baby, wherever you are. All right, and we get along pretty well right now. I think I was 10, my sister was probably, I don't know, 8, 10, somewhere in there. And then, can you flip to the next photo? When I was looking through, I found this photo of Cole, and it made me laugh my socks off, so I wanted to show it to you. He was a little goober when he was little. He liked to put on Power Ranger suits and run around the house pretending to, fight things. So that was really cute to watch. And then my next photo is just me, my sister, and my brother now. Now Kenzie is 20, I'm 18, and Cole's 16, and we get along perfectly. So, yeah. But a little story about me to get to know me better. Back before I graduated last spring, my school would always do these talent shows. And you could do whatever you wanted. There's no tryouts. As long as you could, play an instrument, dance, talk, sing, whatever, you could get on the talent show. And the first year I did it, I'm like, all right, I got to do something funny and just kind of goofy, right? So me and my buddy went and talked to Miss Roxanne. We're like, we want to do a magic show. So we borrowed some of her magic tricks she used for the kids, and we learned how to do all these tricks. It was about 5 minutes worth of material. We just kind of procrastinated until the last week to prepare, and then worked really hard, and I think it was fun. It was a totally goofy thing. The next year, me and my friend Isaiah, we did a guitar battle. So I dressed up like a nerd. I had suspenders and long socks up to my knees, and we had a guitar battle. And then the last year, I wanted to do something kind of more serious and fun. And, I was thinking, I can't do magic, can't do guitar. But one of my classmates approached me. Now, this girl approached me and asked me if I wanted to play guitar for her while she sang. I was like, yeah, sure. And I was super excited because at that point I had a huge crush on this girl. And if you're a middle school boy, your butterflies start to tingle a little bit, right? Yeah, that was great. And then I also had to talk and speak words after that. So that was a great feeling. But we made a plan to hang out and start practicing. We had about a month. So the first Friday we met, I went home, got all spiffied up, did my hair, brushed my teeth, got out, and then I rolled over to her house and hopped out my mom's car because I was 13. And at this point, the school I went to, they had a dress code. Now, to most people, it wouldn't look very good. I got out of the car wearing brown Merrill loafers. I think I had pleated khaki pants on and a red polo tucked into my pants. Oh, yeah, sharp. That was beautiful. But the funny thing is, chances are she was wearing the same thing. The exact same clothing, because everyone had to wear the same stuff. But yeah, so I get in, I meet her mom, and then after a while we start, talking, and we were like, all right, we should practice. So we went to practice this song. Her mother apparently was part of the band as well. She took on the role of band management, which means she critiqued everything, made us practice the song over and over and over again, and was kind of in charge of the whole operation. So we ended up practicing one song 30 times in a night in an hour and a half. So, it was, how many of you guys play a stringed instrument, any stringed instrument at all? Okay, so if you play stringed instruments a lot, you get calluses on your fingers, which makes it not hurt when you play. I hadn't played guitar in 6 months at that point, so I had soft little baby fingers, and playing an hour and a half for the same song over and over again made my fingers turn purple, and I had grooves in them for a day and a half. Yeah. So, we practiced this song so many times, over and over and over again, and I grew sick of it, all right? It was the same 4 chords, and it was a 3.5-minute song. In the same tempo, the same thing. So after a while, we got done, we did the show, it was great, and just a couple weeks ago, I had realized, I was listening to music on my phone, and that song popped up, and the song was Your Hands by J.J. Heller. It was a great song about how God can hold you up through all the hard things and the good things in your life if you hold on to him and trust him. And I never caught that when I was in middle school, probably because I was 13, I was blonde, and there's a really cute girl sitting next to me, so like nothing made it past me. It was in ear and out the other. But I finally paid attention to the lyrics because that's what I was looking for. And I think a lot of times people at church can have the same issue. You know, a lot of people come to church every Sunday or Saturday and a Wednesday and tons of stuff, and everything starts to get kind of dull. The worship songs start to lose their meaning. The messages don't hit as hard because everything just kind of seems like the same information relayed over and over and over again. And I think that can really be an issue for people if you're losing that sense of worship and why we worship. And I think a big important reason of why we come to church and worship, especially youth group, this is a great thing. You all have friends here, right? You all have people you come to talk with and be in community with. It's so we can be connected to each other. The connection to friends and to God is a great opportunity for us to have a really deep personal relationship. And this is really important to see, especially with congregations who come together and worship and sing. There's a powerful effect when people come together. And in Acts 16, 25 through 26, there's an example of this. And you can put it up there. It's a man named Paul and his friend Silas were arrested for sharing their faith and put into this prison. And when they were in there at night, it says, about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. Suddenly there was such a violent earthquake that the foundations of the prisons were shaken, or the prisoners, and at once the prison doors flew open and everyone's chains came loose. So Paul and Silas were in a bad situation. They had just been shackled up for having an opinion about something and preaching. So they decided just to start singing and praying. They weren't doing anything super complicated. They're just using their voices, but they're expressing to God how they feel and what they need, and they're asking for his help. And God showed up. And not only did he help Paul and Silas, he broke everyone's chains and busted the doors open so they could all escape. And, you know, music has always kind of been this way for people to cry out to God, whether you're thanking him for something, you're asking him, how could you have this happen, or you're asking for help to prevent something from happening. Like I said, you know, Paul and Silas cried out to God. If you've read the book of Psalms, Psalms is all about David writing to God and saying, I need your help, how could you do this, or praising God for what he has. And then I was looking at African hymns the other day. It just popped into my head. African hymns is an entire genre based off of 100 years of pain where people are singing to God. They're asking God for help, for strength, for guidance, and if you can't get me out now, bring me through all the way to the end. Give me strength to get through. And it's really richening to look at that. There's super deep words in African rituals because it's lots of pain, and it's truthful, and it's real, and it's beautiful. And, you know, this music has a super, super deep meaning to it, whether it's African rituals or just hymns or, you know, Hillsong songs right now. There's usually a deeper spiritual meaning to it that we're not always catching. And if we come to church, I think a lot of times it happens to me. I know it happens to a lot of my friends and most Christians, I think. At some point, you come into church and you just don't feel like worshiping, right? Music's playing, but nothing's going on in your head or your heart. And a lot of the time, there's for a couple reasons. Like I said, one, you're not in the mood. Maybe you're angry at something, right? You're upset about something that happened at school. You got a bad grade. Your friend's being annoying. Something's going on, right? Someone left you on red. Maybe you're upset. You know, you didn't get to play that much in a sport. You know, you got seated, got benched, or you worked super hard and didn't make a team. Are you distracted, right? Do you have neighbors around you doing stuff that's pulling off your attention? Do you have your phone out? Is that pinging you all the time? Or even if it doesn't, can you feel it buzzing in your pocket and you just really want to look at it because you might have a Snapchat from somebody, right? Are you sick? It's flu season. This is the only excuse I could give you for not coming to church. If you're vomiting, please do not come. And are you stressed out? I think we have, how many juniors do we have? When's your ACT? Yeah, see, ACT, right. That's a big thing. Or SAT, right? Or PSAT. Or what's the other Californian one that all the weird people take? But those are all the excuses. We can always find an excuse to get out of coming to church. Whether it's you don't want to worship, you don't want to hear the message, you don't want to talk to people. I felt that one. You just don't want to communicate with humans on a normal basis. And in high school, I experienced this a lot. In high school, it wasn't a very easy time for me because I was going through some friend issues at the time. Me and my best friend had gotten into a little bit of trouble, and we got caught, and then I ended up losing the trust of my best friend and his best friend's parent, or my best friend's parent, and his mom, and that really hurt because he was one of my best friends throughout middle school and high school. I think it was like 6 or 7 years we spent together, nonstop. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't hang out with him. We couldn't go to each other's houses. And even in the hallway, he wouldn't say hi to me anymore. Like, we'd walk past each other, and he'd just, like, turn his head, which was kind of a slap in the face. But that's what happened. I felt after that, I just kind of wanted to come home and curl up into a ball most days. And those days where I felt super sad or upset or angry, and especially ashamed, I tried to come to church. Those were the best days for me to find something out of worship. And I was lucky to be a part of the actual worship team. I got to come up here and play bass or play acoustic and sing and work with my sister, so I had to come sing those songs. I had to learn the lyrics, and it was powerful. And okay, I'm going to warn you, the worship leaders do sometimes get tired of songs. That's a misconception. There's some songs that get super overplayed, but we learn the lyrics, and they're all beautiful. All the lyrics have power and meaning, and I got to learn that. And like I said, those days where I really didn't want to come were the best. So, and I said that, I think shame and anger were the two biggest ones that kept me from coming to school. Or not coming to school, church. Kept me from coming to church. So anger made me draw away from all my friends and all my family members. So, anger can also make you push away from God. If you say, God, something happens in your life that sweeps your feet out from underneath you, and you look at God and say, how could you let that happen? That's okay to do. You can be angry at God. You just don't want to turn your back at that point. If you're having a face-to-face conversation with God when you're upset, that's totally okay. He wants you to come to him when he's upset. It's when you start turning your back and walking away further and further because you just don't want to acknowledge that God's there, that it becomes an issue. And we're trying to do the opposite. We're trying to have that face-to-face conversation with God, asking him, how could this happen, or how can you get me out of it? And there's a few really good examples of trusting in God no matter what. And it's up here. I have a list of a couple guys. Who's heard of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Oh, okay. So these are 3 young men. They're living in old times. That's all I'll give you. I'll just brief over some of these. But there was a king that decided he was a god, apparently. He felt pretty godly, so he constructed a big, large golden statue of himself. And every day he'd have a bunch of horns and flutes and harps and stuff play. And when those played, everyone in the city had to bow down to this thing for a certain amount of time. Now these 3 young men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, said, no, we're not going to do that because God says don't bow to false idols. So when that day came around, the horns blew. They were the only ones standing in a group of hundreds of people, and they got arrested. The punishment for not bowing was to be thrown in a furnace. Like, you ever seen a wood-burning furnace? Imagine that, but like human size. And that's what they throw them into and just blow air in. And they're expected to be burned, and that's how you're supposed to die, burned to death. But when the king threw them in, he could see into the furnace, and he threw in 3 people, but he saw a 4th figure in the furnace. And that 4th figure was an angel from God protecting the young men. And God drew them out. They stood up for what they believed. They stood up for God, and they went through a hard time, but God pulled them through it. The next one is Job. Have you guys ever heard of Job? No? Wow. Okay, less. So Job was essentially a very powerful man. He lived in the land of Uz, Uzi, and he had lots of land, lots of money. He had livestock, a big family, and everything. And he lost all that, and it was horrible for him. He lived in a very bad spot. He had tons of boils and stuff all over his arm after a while. He got sick. But God pulled him through all this hard time, all the loss, all the pain, all the death from his family. And he ended up replenishing it and doubling it in the end because Job stuck with God. He did not give up. He did not curse God. He stuck strong. Joseph, you guys should have heard of this one. Joseph was thrown into a pit by his older brothers, and then he was sold as a slave by his older brothers. But then, after he had worked as a slave for a while, he became one of the leaders in Egypt, where he was sold to. And a couple years later, his older brothers had to come to him to ask for grain. So they sold him to slavery, but he was the one who bailed them out when they couldn't feed themselves. And God gave him the ability, even though he was sold into slavery, he was beaten up, he was pretty much made into nothing. He came out on top. He trusted God. He never gave up. He never worshiped the Egyptian idols. So God pulled him out. And then there's Daniel. Daniel was thrown into a lion den. He was thrown into there because he believed in his thoughts. God always told him, worship me, pray to me, and talk to me. And the king of the land at that point decided to make it illegal to pray to God. So eventually he told the king, he's like, hey, I can't do this. I'm going to have to pray 3 times a day. And I do that every day. And if it's illegal, I'm not going to stop. So the next day after the law was passed, they looked at Daniel's house and his window was open and they could see him praying in there. So they arrested him and threw him into the lion's den. And when you get thrown into the lion's den, the lions are usually starving. They hadn't fed him for days. So it was death by being ripped apart usually. And when he got in there, he just prayed to God, and an angel came and shut the mouths of the lions. And when Daniel was pulled out alive, everyone was surprised. Because it wasn't like anyone could see in the den. It was like a giant hole they'd just throw you into and shut the lid. And then they'd wait. So when they opened that lid up and saw the lions laying on the ground and Daniel just standing there like, yeah, what's up? Right, yeah. Then they pulled him out and were so surprised. And people who believed in the God of Israel were no longer persecuted. The king said, this is something real, this is something powerful. And it's obvious that God will pull people through this. Now, I have a little personal experience with this anger and pain towards God, and it's really hard to keep that mentality of even if something bad happens, keep trusting God and not turn your back. When I was 12, I had one of my cousins die, who was I really, really loved him. He was a close friend, a close family member, and he died of cancer. And then about a year later, I had one of my grandfathers die. He was super close, one of my best friends, taught me all my hobbies, and he died of a brain tumor. And then another 2 years later, I had my other grandfather. He passed away from a heart attack suddenly, and it all kind of built up. After a while, at first it was just kind of like a mourning thing. I was just sad for their loss. But after a while, I got angry. I got really upset. I was like, I was so young. I was so close to them. Why did you take them? How could you have done this to me? And eventually I started to just push them away. I started to just kind of not want to talk to them, just turn my back and walk the other direction. And it took me a while to come around to seeing that that was very damaging. Now I'm coming around to the other point where I can see that, yes, I had family members die. It was sad, it was painful, but now I can connect with people who've had family loss on a deeper level. I can connect with people who have cancer because I understand, what it's like to be a family member to someone who has cancer, and it kind of gives you a better understanding. And it just, it made me have a deeper connection with God and the rest of my family members and understand nothing lasts forever. That's what I took out of it. This anger can really hit you hard and ruin relationships, but also shame. That one's a little bit more secretive, I think. You can be pretty vocal about your anger at something. Shame you tend to hide. You sin once, or you do something nasty and horrible, and you just kind of, put it behind your back, and you can kind of hide it for a while, right? And then you do something else, and you put that behind your back, and then you keep doing that for a while until you've got a long line of stuff behind you, and eventually you're going to have to deal with it, right? There's no running away from it, and there's no hiding it from God. It's not like you can hide something because he can see everything you do. So eventually you got this huge stack of problems. You're not willing to accept it or to ask for forgiveness, but you accept life to go on normally. And there's a great example of, kind of doing that hiding thing. I have a problem. I'm just going to put it behind me and expect God not to look at it. There's a story in the very beginning of the Bible. It's in the book of Genesis. It's the story of Adam and Eve. You've all heard this, right? Story of Adam and Eve? Yeah? Okay, good. But, so at the start of the Bible, God created the earth, right? Created everything on the earth, created the stars, the heavens, space, everything. And on the seventh day of creation, he rested. Then after that, he created man, or Adam. Now, Adam was meant to be the steward of earth. He was meant to watch over the land, watch over the animals, name the animals, pretty much manage everything. That's what the word steward means. It means to manage and take care of and make sure it's used in the best way possible. So he was supposed to be the steward over the land. And then he saw that Adam had a lot of work to do. It was way too much for one person. So he said, all right, Adam needs a helper. So I'm going to make him Eve, the first woman. And Eve and Adam were supposed to work through life together to populate the earth and to be stewards over the land. Now, there were many, many trees they could eat from, so much fruit, it was insane. But there was one tree they couldn't eat from, tree of knowledge, all right? And at first, God said, hey, don't eat from that, but you got all these other trees to eat from. And they were like, cool, that's totally wrong, reasonable to do. So they spent a while like that, and then one day Eve was walking past the tree of knowledge, probably on to go get like a pomegranate or watermelon off a tree or something. And then, hey, it's the Garden of Eden, okay? We don't know what was there. But she was walking past it, and then this slithery little serpent came down. It was like, hey, Eve, you should come over here and eat this fruit off the tree. And Eve said, God told me I can't do that. I got all these other trees. I think I'm set. He said, well, if you eat this, you'll have knowledge. And God doesn't want you to have knowledge because he doesn't want you to be like him. And after some bantering, she finally gave in and ate the fruit. And then eventually she was like, hey, Adam, you should try this fruit. And Eve's the only girl on earth, so Adam was probably like, yeah, okay, and just took it. Right? And just accepted it. He's like, I'm not going to say no. I don't want to get in an argument. So he ate the fruit too, and immediately they knew what they had done wrong. And when they were created, they were born naked. They were created naked. They had nothing to hide. They had no clothing because they didn't need to. They were in one-on-one communication with God. They had no shame, no sins, no errors. Nothing was wrong. The second they ate the fruit, they went and clothed themselves. They went, put on fig leaves, clothed themselves, and hid. And they hid because they knew they had done something wrong. They knew what evil and sin was because they ate the fruit of evil and good. So they understood it. At first, they didn't know what sin was, so they didn't really care. But now they felt shame for that, so they went and hid, and they ran for the bushes. And it says in Genesis 3:8, then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and they hid from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. So instead of coming to God and apologizing, they did what most people do and just bolt for cover and then try to deal with it later, which is, seems like a great idea in the moment, but then is super damaging afterwards. Because then you got problems to deal with, and God can see you, so you're just being ridiculous because, it's God's garden. He could just look down and see him. But this shame, again, I don't think it's as damaging as anger towards relationships, but shame can really hide you from God. If you have a bunch of issues and you're like, I'm just going to ignore it, right? I'm going to keep ignoring things, putting them behind me, and then it builds up and becomes this big, nasty problem. You don't want to talk to people. You don't want to come to church. You don't want to sing. You don't want to listen to sermons because you might feel convicted. And that can be really painful and damaging. And if we continue to rationalize and justify all of our issues, if you're ashamed about something, you go, well, that was okay. That's fine, that was once, right? One time, it ends up being twice, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10s. It's going to happen a lot and be bad. 10s, yes, okay? Yeah, I'm sorry. So I have a couple steps toward finding some really good healing, powerful worship where you have a deeper connection. So the first one is just show up to church. Show up to worship. And if you're not here, you can't really find that community. And the community is a huge part of worship because if you're singing with your brothers and your sisters, it's going to be a really powerful and rich environment. And I've had a couple experiences, and some of my friends have, where we're at camp and we're singing a song, and then all of a sudden you start sobbing just because it's such an emotional connection and you feel the Spirit's presence, you just start to cry. And I've seen some very masculine men cry like babies, all right, like laying face down on the floor sobbing. Yeah, I've done it. So it's a powerful thing. Show up, speak to God, and be honest with him. Don't pull your punches. If you got something to say it to God because he can handle it. If you're angry, let him know. If you're upset, let him know. If you're feeling depressed, let him know why. Or praise him for the good things in your life. He loves hearing that too. Listen to what God has to say. For me, it comes in just little random thoughts. You're during worship, and you're like, man, I should really ask for help for this problem. That's not good. or I have a really unhealthy relationship with this person, or I should ask forgiveness from this individual. And it's microsecond thoughts, but if you can hold on to it, they're super influential. And the last one is get connected. You know, we have a worship night coming up this Friday, right? Friday at 7 p.m. What time? Friday at 7 p.m.? And who should come? Everybody, yes. Okay, good. And then we also have, on December 12th, we have a serve night coming up where we're going to be doing a bunch of different projects to send out to people in Eau Claire who need our help around the Christmas season. So that's a really great opportunity. That's December 12th. Also, come to youth group. Good job. This is one down. Okay, youth group, we have a great worship team that does a great job making a worship environment where we can be in the presence of God. And we don't have to focus on playing instruments. You can just sing and make music with your voices, which is beautiful. Come to Saturday and Sunday services, all right? Our pastoral staff is amazing. Our worship staff is amazing. And they, again, create an environment of worship. And then if you can't do that, jam in the car, all right? We can all find Hillsong on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify. You can listen to old hymns or Spanish Christmas covers, I don't know. Find something you connect to God with and listen to it and pay attention to the lyrics. So just remember, guys, be honest in worship. You know, be present somewhere you can connect with God in the community. And just, you know, be open to God's presence. So thank you. I'll pray for us quick before worship starts up here. All right. Dear Lord, I wanted to thank you for everyone who came here tonight. Thank you for that they're willing to spend their time here and be in community with you. I pray that people can start to find their own ways to connect with you deeper in worship, to really have a personal connection through music and through the lyrics. And even if they don't have to sing, they can just have a conversation with you.